Now entering Nerdist.com.
Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. Episode 40, Friday's Child.
With open hands and hearts, we welcome you to another episode of Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. Freshly returned from another diplomatic mission, I'm Ken Ray.
And I'm John Champion, and I have had it about up to here with diplomatic missions to secure mining rights on another planet. Instead, just for today, Ken, I think I'm going to kick back and I'm going to look at the morals, messages, and meanings within Star Trek.
You sure you don't want to just have fun with an episode of Star Trek?
Oh, could we? I don't know.
Let me ask you, John, which episode would you like to examine for morals, messages, and meanings today?
Well, you know, I'd say something clever, but I guess it all has to depend on the day of the week on which somebody is listening to this episode, and I would tie it into the title. The title would be Friday's Child. You may be listening to it on a Tuesday or a Thursday or a Monday, but for today, we're talking about Friday's Child.
Yeah, it's Friday, and I'm in love with Star Trek. That thing, though, so Friday's Child, that's from that thing. That's from that poem. It
is from that poem.
That we all kind of know. We all pretty much know what the deal is with the day that we're born. Like, what day were you born, John? What day of the week?
Are you ready? I was born on a Sunday.
Okay.
I'm Bonnie, Blythe, and good and gay.
No jokes. No jokes.
No jokes.
Yeah. I was born.
And what about you, Ken?
Monday. I'm fair of face, according to the poem.
You are.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You are Bonnie and Blythe as well.
Well, thanks. Thanks for just stopping there.
And a happy fellow, I would say.
Yeah. I'm a happy fellow. Yeah.
There you go. Friday's Child, though. So what's the deal with Friday's Child?
Well, first of all, the episode Friday's Child, as we kind of gave it away in the intro there, Kirk, Spock, McCoy, and, someone who meets an unfortunate end, go to a planet to try to secure mining rights. That is the premise of Friday's Child. So for those of you who are playing along at home, that's the episode that you're watching. But before we get too much into the story details, yes, we will dig right into trivia. So, Ken, you brought up the poem. And for those of you who don't know, this is an Old English poem from which the title is derived. And if you'll indulge me here, I'll just read it. I'm not going to do a dramatic reading. I'm just going to blast through it. Monday's child is fair of face. Tuesday's child is full of grace. Wednesday's child is full of woe. Thursday's child has far to go. Friday's child is loving and giving. Saturday's child works hard for a living. For the child who is born on the Sabbath day is bonny and blithe and good and gay. So Friday's child is loving and giving. And that is the child here who plays a part in this episode.
I got to say, that's a lot to expect of a baby.
It kind of is. You know, I heard this poem for the first time when I was very, very young.
Yes.
And I can't remember exactly when, but it was a long, long time ago. And even then, I thought, wow, this poem is just really unfair.
Yeah.
You know, Wednesday is just out of luck. And how dare whoever wrote this poem apply these personality traits to these poor, innocent children with not even knowing them.
Do you ever wonder about the first person who did this stuff? I mean, you said it was an Old English poem. So, I mean, This is hundreds of years old, right?
Yes.
And I think about things like row, row, row your boat. Right? Or, you know, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. I mean, we can sort of track down where somebody, like where the music is credited sometimes, but, you know, row, row, row your boat. Really? Somebody wrote that.
Right.
And we don't know who. We all know the words. None of us can remember when we heard it. It's the same thing with this. Somebody actually probably did write this at some point.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
It is kind of crazy. Well, and here's what's interesting. So the version that I read is from the Oxford Dictionary of Nursery Rhymes. And the poem, the actual lines and descriptions have changed a little bit depending on which version of English you're getting this from. And the line about Wednesday's child has actually been changed into something positive in later versions of this poem. So everybody's a winner. depending on which version of the poem you get.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's very cool. I thought you were going to say like the really old English version is like Wednesday.
Tales?
Well, no, Wednesday's child suffers hard knocks, but Thursday's child, he's got the pox, or something like, it's really,
I love it.
Really dark. So, Full of Woe is actually a little bit better.
Yeah, that's good. So I just right off the bat, I'm going to say the poem really bothers me. It bothers me more than it should. It really does.
It started to pick up on that. Let's talk about something that we love about this. I'm going to horn in on your trivia thing. We're back.
Okay.
We're back, baby. Vasquez rocks.
Yes, we are.
Somebody should film a sitcom at Vasquez Rocks just so I can watch it every week.
Yeah. This episode, you jump back and forth really blatantly, unfortunately, between the studio set and then the actual location. I mean, there are some shots that are just back to back, and that's unfortunate. But the good thing is we're using different areas of Vasquez Rocks. Instead of using the famous rocks, as they call them, that kind of jut out of the ground at an odd, sharp angle.
Although we do see those.
We do see those, but most of the action is back.
Yeah.
And that's kind of cool. I'm glad that we get to revisit that. Some interesting things here about the guest stars, the ones that are particularly obvious, but maybe some of you in our audience don't know. Julie Newmar, who plays Kelley. Yes. She was Catwoman on the Batman series of the 60s. There were three actors who played Catwoman. You had Eartha Kitt, Julie Newmar, and Lee Merriweather in the movie. But Julie Newmar was one of the two TV Catwomen, and she was just great. I think Julie Newmar as Catwoman left an indelible mark on pretty much every male who watched that show. So, including Batman. I love their chemistry. So, but another guest star to mention here, Teague Andrews, who plays the Klingon in this. He had a long-running stint on the Mod Squad. He was Captain Greer.
Wait,
so he was.
Is it Teague or Tig?
Oh, I thought it was Teague.
I thought it was Tig.
Tig? Okay.
I don't know. Well, I'm not correcting you. I'm just let's throw them both out there.
There you go. All right, take your pick. And Teague, Mr. Andrews, if you want to call that.
Mr. Andrews. I like that.
Let's
go that way.
Well, he played Captain Greer on the Mod Squad, so he was kind of the guy who brought together the Mod Squad. He was not Mod himself. And he also appeared, though, in the incredibly short-lived TV series The Barbary Coast, starring, do you know who starred in The Barbary Coast?
Nope.
William Shatner.
Really?
Yeah. It ran from late 75 to early 76. Only 14 episodes were made, and I'm not even positive that all 14 were aired. But that was William Shatner's return to series TV.
I always assumed that T.J. Hooker was his return to series TV.
No. Barbary Coast, actually, there are things about it to like, but not enough to keep it on the air for a full season.
Apparently. That's not always a good judge, though, because, I mean, both Firefly and Max Headroom 20 Minutes into the Future only got like half seasons.
Yeah,
and
true.
There's a tremendous amount to love about both of those.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not necessarily fair to say there wasn't enough. Although, seriously, when you only had 3 channels, if you can't stay on for more than half a season, yeah, it's not the best. Not the best pedigree. Yeah.
Right. Couple other things to mention here about the development of this particular episode. There is an original draft floating around out there in which Eliane sacrificed her child. So that child being Friday's child, who will play a part in the plot line that you will read to us in a moment, Ken. That had kind of a darker turn than what we get in the final episode. Now, we don't have that original draft, but what I do want to draw our listeners' attention to is the discovered document that we run concurrent with our episodes. So if you go to the website, and you can also follow the link from our Facebook page, every time we post an episode, pretty much every time, we post a discovered document from the Roddenberry archive. And this one is really interesting. We chose this because it fits right into the middle of season 2, which is kind of where we are. This episode aired in late 1967. The document is from early 1968, from April of 1968. It's from Gene Roddenberry to everybody, to the production staff. And it's a breakdown of the major characters, so Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, and then with kind of a couple of special paragraphs there about the other recurring characters like Scotty, Uhura, Chekhov, and then a more in-depth breakdown of Chekhov. And what's cool is that he's talking about audience reaction to season 1 and early season 2, and how those characters should continue to be written. I found it really fascinating. And just in particular, I'll throw out a little tidbit here. You'll all have to go back and read the full document yourselves. But he said the banter between Spock and McCoy, he said that the audience really loved it, but they hadn't really gone out of their way to write more of it. And he said it's not anybody's fault, but it might have just been a point of, well, they wrote it originally. They didn't know what the reaction was. So, hey, can we please get back to that and have a little more of that back and forth between Spock and McCoy? And we certainly get a little bit of it in this episode.
Get ready for one of the most egregious red shirt deaths in the history of Star Trek. In the future, everyone in a red shirt will be famous for 15 seconds.
Prologue. McCoy is briefing Kirk and Spock and a few others on the Capellans, a big, fast, strong race of knife-throwing, sword-waving warriors with whom Bones spent a few months a while back. He was apparently there to offer medical assistance and training, that the Capellans were not interested. They believed that only the strong should survive. Why the alien sociology lesson? Because the Federation would like to strike a mining deal with the Capellans. Not wanting to risk riling their warrior nature, Kirk and Spock decide on a small landing party to meet the Capellans, leaving Scotty in charge of the Enterprise. Careful, though, Scotty. There's word of Klingon ships in these parts of late. 4 to beam down, Kirk, Spock, McCoy, and some red shirt who is seriously just there to wear the red shirt for 20 seconds or so. The landing party is greeted by a group of Capellans and 1 Klingon. The red shirt sees the Klingon, identifies him as such, goes for his phaser, and is killed by a Capellan. And all that before the opening credits. Act 1. Kirk's a bit bothered that his crewman is dead. The Klingon feigns indignant, saying he's not aware of any open state of war between his race and the Federation. Bones asks if Ma'ab, one of the Capellans, is aware that the Klingons have deemed the Federation their sworn enemies. No, what Ma'ab knows is that the Klingons are interested in a mining agreement as well, and that the Klingon has handed over his weapons and communications devices. By the way, let me have your weapons and communications devices. Safely disarmed, the Capellans put the remainder of the landing party in a very nice tent. Kirk wonders what the Klingons are doing there anyway, and whether that means there might be a Klingon ship vexing the Enterprise. Well, guess what? Up there somewhere in orbit, Chekhov has picked up something on sensors. Seems to be another ship, probably Klingon, though too far away to say for sure. Back planetside, Kirk is offered food by a lovely Capellan woman. Sort of a thank you for turning over their weapons. Bones says Kirk shouldn't take it, though, since if he does, he'll have to fight someone to the death. I did say sort of a thank you, didn't I? Off now to meet the Tier Akar. He seems a sensible fellow and less into pony play than the rest of the Capellans. And here's the very pregnant Eliane, a young wife to give an old man a son. Before the Tier, the Klingon calls the Federation out for fearing death, but Bones points out that it's just that their cultures are different. Also, the Klingon's a liar. That sets the court to chuckling, except for Ma'ab. He takes umbrage. He's pretty decidedly on Team Klingon. The Klingon makes his pitch. Humans have brought medicine for the sick, but the Capellans believe, as the Klingons do, the sick should die and only the strong should survive. Go with Team Klingon and they'll teach the children of Capella 4 how to really fight. Eliane sides openly with the Klingon. Kirk's turn now. He says the Klingon Empire is made up of conquered and pillaged worlds. Go with the Federation, and your planet stays yours. Bottom line, says Ma'ab, a lot of us won't deal with the Federation. He and Akar may be fighting soon. Akar says he needs time to think, but it doesn't take long for war to break out between the forces of Akar and Ma'ab. Post-battle, Aka'ar is dead, and Ma'ab is the new Tier. Ma'ab now seems on the fence regarding with whom he should go, Federation or Klingon. This may be because he's weighing the responsibility of governance, though it seems more likely that he's just a sadistic pony man. Eliane, as the pregnant widow of the fallen Aka'ar, knows what has to happen now. She must die. Ma'ab draws a sword, ready to carry out the execution at once, but Kirk pulls Eliane from the blade, which throws everything out of whack. Now they really have to kill her. And Kirk, too. Eliane's one request: kill Kirk first. She deserves to see him die. While all of that's been happening on Capella 4, the Enterprise has seen the mystery ship at the edge of sensor range disappear. Just as it vanishes, Uhura picks up a distress signal. It's from a freighter, under attack by a Klingon vessel. The freighter begs the Enterprise to acknowledge and assist. Unable to raise the landing party, Scotty decides the Enterprise must rush to the freighter's aid. Act 2. Kirk and Spock know that no help is coming from above anytime soon. They missed their appointed contact time and no reinforcements came beaming in. Something must be up there. Kirk, Spock, Bones, and Eliane are being held captive. Come on, this is Kirk and company. They easily overpower the guards, then put a choice to Eliane. She's prepared to die. Does that mean she wants to? To live is always desirable, she says, and so the four make their way away. In space, the Enterprise gets to the site of the fight between the freighter and the Klingon ship, but there's absolutely no sign of a battle, nor of either ship. Back on Capella 4, Kirk, Spock, Bones, and Eliane have fled to Vasquez Rocks. Away from the settlement. They were able to retrieve their communicators before escaping, but could not find the phasers. Oh, and Eliane hates her unborn baby. Kinda wants it dead. Despite wanting to live, Eliane has been resistant to help from McCoy, and he has had enough. He starts yelling at her. He's a doctor. He helps the sick and injured. And suddenly she's kind of into his helping hands. He goes to physically examine her stomach, and she's not into his helping hands. She slaps him and says that she'll not be touched that way. He says he's a doctor and he'll touch her however he deems necessary. She slaps him again. He slaps her back. And oh yeah, you can touch me however you deem necessary. Kirk and Spock, meanwhile, are scouting out defensive positions. Ma'ab's tribe is on the move, but Kirk and Spock use their communicators to create a rock-of-fire explosion, blocking the closest path. They're safe from Ma'ab and his people, for now. Act 3. In the confusion after the rock-of-fire explosion, the Klingon is able to secretly kill one of the Capellan guards and retrieve one of the Enterprise crew's phasers. Off the survivors go to find another way at Kirk and company. Far away from Capella 4, Scotty realizes how completely he's been duped. The distress call addressed the Enterprise by name. But how could it have known the Enterprise's name? This was an intentional diversion to lure the Enterprise away from Capella 4. They'll stay in search long enough to be sure, but Scotty's pretty sure. Given a few minutes, Scotty decides to head back to Capella 4, ignoring another distress call along the way. Back on the planet, Kirk has found a cave wherein McCoy can deliver Eliane's baby. She doesn't want the baby. It belonged to Aka'ar, but Aka'ar is dead. McCoy tries to get her to understand that the child is hers, but she misunderstands, thinking McCoy is assuming responsibility for the baby. The child, she says, is his. McCoy delivers the baby as Kirk and Spock fashion bows and arrows out of the local fauna. They come in to see the child, which Eliane has deemed theirs, hers and McCoy's. A bit later, Eliane hits a dozing McCoy on the back of the head, making him good and unconscious, and then making her escape sans baby. Once awake, McCoy alerts Kirk and Spock to Eliane's disappearance. They decide to go after her since she will likely go immediately to Ma'ab and the warriors. Along its way back to Capella 4, the Enterprise is intercepted by a Klingon ship directly in its path. They go to red alert as we go to commercial. Act 4. Uhura cannot get any response from the Klingon vessel. Scotty is loaded for bear and presses ahead. On Capella 4, Kirk and Spock lie in wait for Ma'ab and his troops, but Eliane intercepts them. She says the child is dead and offers herself up to Ma'ab's judgment. She says the Earthmen are dead as well. She killed them, she says. The Klingon says he wants proof, though she says her word needs no verification, invoking her status as the wife of a Tier. Ma'ab agrees and turns to head home, but the Klingon will have none of it. He draws his recently acquired phaser and goes to check her story, and is shot in the leg by one of Kirk's arrows. This totally surprises Ma'ab and company, partly I'd imagine because Eliane had said that they were dead, but also because they never figured out the whole bow and arrow thing. And now arrows are flying, and Capellans are falling. The Klingon shoots at Spock with his phaser but misses. He does hit one of the Capellans, though, and now Kirk really wants that Klingon dead. Conferring with Ma'ab, Eliane offers herself as a sacrifice. She'll draw the Klingon's fire, and Ma'ab can kill him. But Ma'ab instead gives Eliane her life back. His is now forfeit. He draws the Klingon's fire and is killed. But the diversion allows one of his soldiers to throw a killing knife into the chest of the Klingon. Kirk and Spock head down into an uneasy standoff with the Capellan warriors, but Scotty and a crew of red shirts arrive and disarm the Capellans. Out comes McCoy with the baby. There's a bit of banter about baby talk, and we're off of Capella 4. Kirk notifies Starfleet that a mining deal has been reached with the Capellans, with Eliane ruling as a representative of the new tier, the baby, Leonard James Aka-R. Spock figures this will make Kirk and McCoy insufferable for at least a month. The end.
Ken, I really have to hand it to you.
Yeah,
your Capellan pronunciation
Dude,
is great.
You get to do the next 4. Okay? That was
I'm being serious, man. You speak Capellan like a native. That's the trick. You put in an extra vowel.
It's like
to make it alien.
Yeah, it's half dude, half porpoise. Actually, okay.
No, it's a good job. And by the way, is it Klingon or Klingon?
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, they keep going back. But I imagine. All right, here's my.
By the time we get to the movies, we'll decide.
Right. Yeah. See, I picture somewhere in the back of my twisted mind, it's Shatner on the set getting the script, and he sees the words, the letters Klingon, and he just starts saying it Klingon, and somebody says no, it's Klingon. And there's a little bit of back and forth, and he says, no, because I'm Canadian, not Canadian. So I'm thinking there was a justification there of how to pronounce it.
Is it come on or come on?
Come on.
All right. Come on. Whatever.
Hey, where are the Organians when you need them? Man, they could have stepped in and just taken care of this whole thing between the Klingons and the Federation.
Yeah. There's a lot of, you miss a lot of the godlike races when you get stuck in this kind of thing. Although there's some interesting stuff we'll get to in a bit. Diplomacy has its day here in kind of a weird way. But there's a lot of other weird stuff first. Like Kirk being really upset, for how diplomatic he's going to be and how diplomatic he has been in recent episodes. Really upset about the death of his red shirt. I mean, he doesn't get it. And I'll say I'm with him. Grant was the nameless red shirt's name, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, all Grant did was draw a phaser on one of the guests of the Capellans.
Yeah.
And Kirk is like, I mean, he's uber angry about that.
Right.
Like, as if, it's almost like he had just bitten his thumb at him, as opposed to actually drawing a weapon. Because this young firebrand is drawing a weapon here. Who knows who he's going to shoot? Right? Yeah. I think the Capellans were completely in their right to do that. And
I agree. Yeah.
Had he not died, he should have been booted from the Enterprise. But
right.
I guess it's wrong to speak ill of the dead, even the ones that as soon as you see them are going to be dead. When 4 beamed down and one of them was a red shirt that wasn't Kyle or Scotty, yeah. Right. You pretty much know that's it.
But this is kind of a high action, high testosterone kind of episode. In fact, the fight scenes just seem to come out of nowhere. They'll just be walking along and then boom, time for another fight scene. So there's a lot of that. That's
interesting because it struck me as being a very not. There are fights and there are epic fights, but not a lot of them. It's not fight all the way through.
No, it's not. I feel like there's a lot.
All right. Do you really? Because I felt like there was a lot of talk in this episode. I think you and I might be on different sides of how this episode goes, but we'll get to that in a minute. Yeah, I got to say, there's one thing I don't understand. Did Aka-R just get old? I'm not sure how he became Tier, because you get there and he's like, what's the word I'm looking for? Sensible.
Yeah.
And a bit sentimental. And you don't really get that sense from any of the other Capellans.
Right.
The Klingons like, we will teach your kids to smash people. And the Tier's wife is like, oh, the Klingon makes a good point.
Right. Yeah.
And Ma'ab, meanwhile, is like, I just kind of want to beat somebody up.
Yeah.
It mostly seems to be what he's about start to finish. And yet Aka-R is all like, we had to deal with the Earth people before we had to deal with the Klingons. Maybe we should honor that, which is, very much not Klingon.
Well, I kind of gave it a pass for two reasons. Because, yes, he is old.
Yeah.
So you figure that he has matured into his position.
Old. He's probably like 50.
Well, yeah. Well, we don't know on that planet.
That's true. That's true.
But the other thing is that I also figure that this race, this society, has endured for some time because there are sensible people there.
Yeah.
Who do things other than just fight at the drop of a hat. So every now and then you've got to have somebody who can kind of hold it together. But yeah, he was sensible.
Do you want to address really quickly? I mentioned it jokingly in the thing, but do you want to address really quickly the benefit of the pony costumes, and also why it is that Aka is not wearing one?
Why is that?
He's not Tier. I mean, he is Tier, excuse me, and Ma'ab is not Tier, but then he becomes Tier, and still he wears the pony costume.
He does,
which is not. It's not. They're not really dressed like ponies, but
well, they got the flat top hat and they got the long, flowing locks,
ponytail coming out of the top of the hat, and then there's also the lines of fur that are kind of weird. Yeah, it's pony play. Before we had a name for it.
Right. A couple other things to point out here. I stopped mentioning where the voiceovers, where the captain's log got weird, but in this one, I just find it particularly sloppy. There's a scene where you're heading into the mountains where they've got Elian, and then suddenly there's exposition. Kirk's like, "Oh, and by the way, she hates her child."
Yeah.
And I have to wonder if this is stuff that had originally been written as action, because the rule with TV is show, don't tell. And now we're just falling back on tell.
Yeah.
I found that weird.
How about watching Scotty do the captain's log, though?
Yeah, I liked him in this episode.
It's kind of fun. I mean, but I mean, watching him do it, that's the thing. Yeah. Normally, the captain's log is voiceover, and we come back, and there's Scotty standing on the bridge, looking off into nowhere. Talking to no one.
A couple episodes ago, I can't remember which one, but he's standing, looking off into the distance.
Well, no, but I mean that's different, because now he's monologuing.
Right.
Do you have to tell the bridge? Okay, shh. I'm gonna do the captain's log. So everybody be quiet, okay? Just turn your communicators to vibrate for a minute, because this is the record. I'm doing the record here, and then somebody walks up in the middle and hands him something to sign. And so he stops, but he doesn't pause the captain's log. And I wonder, 100 years from now, when they're going back and listening. And by the way, do they do that? Do they go back and listen to every captain's log? Yeah. When they're listening, they're like, "Why is he pausing? Did he forget what he was going to say? Did somebody? Did he spill something? What happened? Can we get like a supplemental captain's log to find out why?"
Right.
Yeah, and get the Telosians to replay that for us, maybe. Assuming they're still monitoring the Enterprise. I don't know. It's not necessarily a safe assumption.
Yeah. If you have communicators, they can blow up rock.
Yep.
But your ears are going to be just fine, even if you're 3 feet away.
That was kind of crazy, too, wasn't it? Spock was like, "I think we can create a rock slide. What'll happen is these will sort of like vibrate the rocks like out a little bit, and they'll slide down here."
Except they blew up. And
they blew up. Yeah, it was like some of those rocks that they were feeding Vol.
Right.
All of a sudden. Yeah, that really Vasquez is a very it's a very mutable place. I mean, despite how old those rocks are, they can pretty much be and do whatever you need or want them to.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about that scene where McCoy gets slapped and then slaps back?
Remember, was it MacGyver's who went off with Khan? Yeah.
Uh-huh. Really, you thought of that?
No, a tiny bit. I mean, it is interesting. Points to not Lee Merriweather. She is the other one. Points to Julie Newmar. Yeah, because she's not given a lot to really, she's not given a lot of monologue here. I mean, she's given a weird accent, and she has to pronounce things kind of weird. Like, she sort of starts to fall for McCoy.
Right.
But I mean, just in the way she carries herself. I mean, she goes from being angry to being somewhere between respectful and turned on. Mm-hmm. And being a Southern gentleman, like the last thing that McCoy is ever going to think to do is hit a woman.
Yeah.
The only thing that's going to make him do that is if he's not able to do what he needs to do, which is be a doctor. not a guy who doesn't hit women.
Well, and he understands their ways. He understands their society. So it's like, well, if a violent turn here deserves another violent turn, he's going to do it.
Well, we'll have to get to that in a moment.
We will.
You're skipping ahead.
Yeah. It's interesting that the Capellans here, they live very primitively by our standards. They haven't learned to make bows and arrows. They have the knife thing that they can whiz away and kill a red shirt from 100 paces. But they are totally okay with people in spaceships coming to visit them.
Yes.
So you really have to wonder what that first contact was like,
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't get that's interesting. I didn't get the sense that we don't see any wagons, though, either. That's interesting. So we don't know that they have the wheel, but they do have the ability to make fire and find fabrics, too.
Right.
And in fact, they can make a good fireplace. I mean, they've got a fire pit in the tent. I'm sure that's going to be fine.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, no bow and arrow. I don't know. They just haven't come across it. That's kind of a weird thing. Yeah.
But then people beam down in front of them and like, oh, okay, here comes the people from the Federation. All right.
Yeah.
No big deal. And finally, gosh, I'm so glad to see that the Federation gets their mining rights, because there's a lot of mining to do in the future.
There is.
I hope they don't screw up this planet.
It's like the rare earths thing, man. Mm-hmm. They're everywhere, and you hardly even think about it, but then one day you run out, and all of a sudden you got to find more. So yes, they're all over the place. This was one we hadn't heard of before, though. I assumed it was going to be more dilithium crystals.
Right.
Topolime. Topolime is what this is, which is actually they need for life support systems, which makes me wonder what it was that we were digging for on the planet with the Horda, because that was also for life support systems. I can't remember what it was. I don't think it was Topolime.
Right.
Because if it was, we got plenty of that now from planet Horda.
Right.
It's the craze that's sweeping this quadrant of the galaxy, the Capella name game. Let's do Ken. Kien, Bo, Bien, Banana, Fana, Fo, Fien, Me, My, Mo, Mien, Kien. Let's do John, Jeon, Bo, Beon, Banana, Fana, Fo, Beon, Me, My, Mo, Beon.
I mentioned McCoy a moment ago in our observations on the show, and just particularly with that scene with him and Eliane. But it brings me to kind of a bigger thing about this episode. I really like seeing McCoy with something to do. It's a great episode for him. Mm-hmm. He is the expert on these people, and he gets to step up to the plate with Eliane. He's the one who calls out the Capellan sexism to Eliane about men taking credit for everything, including the baby. And I found it an interesting choice that he's the one on the Enterprise who is briefing Kirk and Spock, and he has that great moment when they beam down and they've kind of made a mess of it at first, and they're addressing Aka-R. And McCoy, with this very pleased look on his face, tells the captain, "I just called the Klingon a liar."
No, actually, the one before that, where it's not even like, Captain, with your permission. He's just like, "I'll take this, Jim."
Right. And he does a little salute, and he just walks right up. Yeah.
Really? You'll take this? Because I'm, you're kind of undermining my authority right this second. I'm like talking for us. No, but you go ahead, please.
Yeah.
Because you're a diplomat, not a... Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, wait. Yeah.
I got to say one thing really quickly before you go on. It is great that he is the expert. May I suggest maybe a presentation class? Because, so there they are in their tent, right? And this woman comes and brings food. And Bones is like, oh, look, she's offering you food. It's kind of a gesture, as a thank you for turning over your weapons. And so Kirk's like, oh, cool. So he goes to reach for the fruit, and he's like, oh, don't touch it, though. Don't take the food that she's offering as a thanks, because then somebody's going to have to die.
Right.
I'm thinking that's the kind of thing you say before you go down.
Well, that's interesting. They're in the briefing room, and he's talking about how they're 7 feet tall, and they're really good with their weapons, and he should have included in there, and don't touch the women.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you, Captain Kirk.
that would be a good thing to say. And also, what he said was, he didn't say they're 7 feet tall. He said 7 feet is not uncommon.
Right.
Okay, now apparently, right around the Tier, 7 feet is uncommon.
Right.
Because nobody was 7 feet tall. There was no rock. There was no, guys who were keeping the planet down or keeping the Galileo down in Galileo 7.
Right.
They're, I'd say they're probably a good 6.5 feet, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They grow shorter in these parts of Capella 4.
Well, the actor playing Mob, I remember I looked it up. He was 6'2", which is taller than the other than our main cast members. It's taller than Shatner, Nimoy, and D. Kelley. But yeah, and then they give him the flat top hat with the ponytail.
Yeah, and that adds easily another 6 inches, and you're still not 7 feet tall.
Right. But the thing for me here is that, particularly centered around McCoy, you have a real attempt at addressing cultural differences and the customs and the details and negotiating with them, because we usually skip over that.
Yes.
In Star Trek, we kind of, is the idea like, oh yeah, they're different, they're alien. But there's no real attempt to figure that out before you get there,
right,
and then negotiate it and navigate it while you're on that planet. So I'm glad that we're hopefully starting this trend where there's a little attempt to figure that out.
That is pretty cool. Cool. You're right, because usually they'll pick up like a catchphrase or two. Like,
right.
Are you of the body? Am I? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. Yes. I'm totally. That sounds like totally that would be a good thing. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, there are actually a couple of interesting things as far as that goes. I mean, I joked about, why the sociology lesson, but I'm not sure that this is a society that would normally pass muster as far as Kirk is concerned. I mean, witness the fact they haven't come up with bows and arrows yet. Except that they have something that the Federation needs, right? We need top of line, it turns out. And you can't just get that anywhere. Yeah. So there are a couple of things that they're now forced to do. I mean, they can't just go in and use force, and they can't just go in and sort of, trick their way through it. And sadly, there's no computer to blow up, so, they might be at a loss. Right. There are two things that kind of came to mind here. There's a little bit of when in Rome, right? I mean, Kirk will destroy a society in a heartbeat, but like I say, this one is either apparently thriving enough or just because they have something that they need. They have to, kind of figure out how to move through. So Kirk won't do what he would normally do. He won't touch the ladies. He'll turn over their weapons and communicators. I mean, he really is. He's being, in a way, more of a diplomat, but a different kind of diplomat. Mm-hmm. He's not doing the whole, dressed in his finest and making all sorts of promises. I mean, he goes, he makes the Federation case, but he's very much not acting the way Kirk would normally act until he sees that Eliane is, literally about to die.
Yeah.
I mean, he pulls her from the blade at that point.
Right.
And figuring that, okay, well, I mean, they were kind of on the losing side anyway. The Klingon sort of had the upper hand. But, I mean, there's no way he's going to let her die. I mean, the Federation needs top of line. They can get it someplace else. He's not going to stand there and watch this woman die, even if she thinks it's what she has to do. Now, almost counter the one in Rome thing, the other, I guess, biggest lesson that I picked up from this episode, assuming there is a lesson to be had, treat people as they should be treated, not as they expect to be treated in a way. Or maybe when you expect the most of someone and treat them as if you expect the most of somebody, they're going to live up to that expectation. Eliane feels she has to die. She doesn't want to, but she feels like she has to. And as deeply held as her belief in her society is, she's going to submit to dying. She comes to a point where she doesn't think that the landing party has to die. Now, their laws say that the landing party has to die because, two of them now have touched her in ways that are inappropriate, and they're inappropriate because they're not allowed to touch her at all. Two of them have, and yet she comes to a place because they have actually, because of the way they've acted, because they've acted in a way that, they expect the best of her. She, she then is going to, she's going to go ahead and do what she feels like she has to do, but she doesn't feel like that has to be applied to them anymore. In fact, she's willing to hasten her death, which we know she doesn't want. She has said to live is always desirable. She doesn't want to die, but she's willing to hasten her death to give them a chance to live. So, I mean, there seemed to be kind of a, is it a message? Is it a moral? Well, I'd say it's more a moral than a message. I mean, by it's that whole thing, if you expect a kid to be bad or if you expect a dog to be bad, and if you treat them as if they're going to be bad, then they're going to be bad, generally speaking, because they pick up on it, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas if you treat a kid, let's say, I don't want to liken children to dogs. It's because I have a dog, not a kid. I mean, if you treat a child like a grown-up, I mean, a lot of times they'll surprise you and act like a grown-up.
Yeah. It's like if you were to, say, use a poem to assign terrible character traits to children before you got to know them.
Wow, why do you hate that so much? Why do you hate?
I don't even know.
Now, do you have a problem with all nursery rhymes, or is it just that one?
No, I think it's just that one.
So if I bust out "Mary Had a Little Lamb," you're not going to go crazy on me.
Oh, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that.
Right,
now, I think that what's interesting here about what you're saying is that to me, it kind of goes back to this diplomacy thing. You know, the Enterprise crew have scratched the surface of understanding the Capellans. You know, it's helpful that McCoy is there and he knows some of the details, but this is still a very surface level thing. But what we find then through Elian and then later through Ma'ab is that their honor, their sense of honor runs deep. And then their sense of sacrifice runs deep as well. So as alien as it is at first, by the time I get to the end of the story, we now have two of these people who are putting their lives on the line to save others. And that's a revelation to the Enterprise crew, definitely, because at first it was all just kill, 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 fight, fight, fight.
What do you think it was that precipitated the change in Ma'ab? I mean, was it the fact that he had placed so much faith in his dealing with the Klingon and the Klingon ended up being untrustworthy? Or was it suddenly being handed governance? I mean, he says at one point, perhaps being Tier is to see things differently. I mean, was it just suddenly having the mantle of governance thrust upon him? Well, taking it, actually. It's not to say thrust upon him.
Yeah.
Or was it the fact that he got screwed by the Klingon?
I think it's all of the above. I mean, I think he got screwed over by the Klingon. He saw their true nature, which was not honorable by the conniving that the Klingon was doing. I think he also saw... hopefully, even though we understand that the Capellans, how is it McCoy phrased it, that they find making war more pleasurable than love?
Yes, something like that.
Yeah. But they were also in kind of a difficult situation there. There was already a lot of blood being spilled. Kirk and Spock were taking down those Capellans pretty handily with the bow and arrow. Yeah. This might have been a bad situation for them. And, maybe reason would also dictate, well, okay, this is the first of a group or multiple groups of spacefaring citizens that will show up here, Oh, and by the way, now we have to answer for a dead Klingon as well. Just wait till they show up.
Well, they're not showing up, though.
Oh, well, no, not now.
Scotty just, bowled straight through them.
Right.
Apparently. He actually said they didn't have the stomach for fighting, so I assume that they backed down.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Well, we haven't really, it's interesting because timeline, what have you. Mm-hmm. The Klingons are a more proud, more warlike race, I think, once you get to the movies. Once you get to the motion picture and beyond.
Yeah.
They're a little closer to Ferengi.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, that the Klingons in later Trek are honorable and warlike. The Klingons now, and really typified in, I'm thinking of John Kolokos playing Krug, and the name of the episode is escaping me. But wow. he is
I'm the wrong person to ask.
but he is very conniving, and that seems to be a character trait.
Yes,
in these Klingons, yeah,
and one that will go away certainly by, if not by the movies, then definitely by the next generation.
Right. Yeah. So it's a great question that you have about how. Oh, by the way, the name of the episode is "Errand of Mercy."
Nice.
Yeah, we're working on it. But the question is, why does Ma'ab have the change of heart? Mm-hmm. And it's really hard to say. We can see the process in Elian because she's been around McCoy a lot, and they're kind of breaking each other down.
Right.
Which is the nice thing to see in this episode. Ma'ab, I don't know, but it works as an ending.
Yeah, it does. So, that works pretty well. I mean, I kind of wish he had charged the Klingon rather than just, standing there to take it. I mean, that would have been a bit more Although that definitely does typify the change. You're right. I mean, he's not thinking he's going to get one up on the Klingon. I mean, he is sacrificing himself. He is doing
absolutely
exactly what he has to do. There's not even a moment of thinking, how am I going to get out of this one? Yeah,
right.
No, you're not. And so,
yeah.
Although, points off to Klingon, who never got a name, did he?
No, he doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Points off to Klingon for not seeing that coming.
Right.
Right. Wow, he's just going to leave himself open there? I'm going to shoot him and then not even worry about what else is going on around me.
Yeah. Really.
Yeah. Oh, well. Because he's got a whole lot of warriors standing right there with him. Yeah. So, kind of a neat change to see in Ma'ab. Sadly, I guess the next TR, wow. Yeah, it's interesting to think about what that society is going to become. Mm-hmm. I guess maybe we'll find out one day. Maybe we're going to be there mining from now on.
Yeah. And by the way, the Klingon does have a name, actually. It's Kras, Kras, but that was never revealed in the episode. I believe that was...
You're just making it up?
No, I'm not making it up.
Okay.
That was, I believe it's originally sourced to a script note, but you're right. He is never called by name in the episode.
No, he is Klingon.
He is Klingon.
All the way through. That's like his first, last, middle. Like Madonna or Sting.
Yeah.
Klingon.
Or Klingon.
Yeah, whichever.
Yeah.
One thing that kind of bothered me in this episode, there's a bit of reverse psychology, although I think it would actually be like from the Complete Idiot's Guide to Reverse Psychology. From Kirk's book on how to win friends and influence people. Play to their vanity. That's pretty much it, in a way. So they're talking about whether or not they can make all the rocks in Vasquez explode. Which is actually not what they're talking about. They're talking about, can they, create a rock slide? Maybe this is why they exploded. Actually, I mean, maybe Spock stepped it up a notch.
I'll show you.
Because he's like, okay, so am I right in thinking that we could, create some sort of subsonic something or other that would vibrate the rock so we get a rock slide? Says Kirk, and Spock says, that'd be tough. Mm-hmm. And Kirk's like, well, if you can't do it, I didn't say that. And so he goes to it, and of course makes the rocks explode. Same kind of thing happens with Bones. When he's talking about, Capellan physiology or anatomy, different.
Yeah.
Well, if you can't deliver the baby. Shut up. I can deliver the baby. Just stay away from me,
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like these guys are 5.
I know, right?
Well, if you don't think you can clean up your room. I can clean up my room. Yeah, okay.
And the question, or the answer to that question about can McCoy deliver a baby? Yes, he can, and he can do it in about 2 minutes. Yeah, and just walk out with a big smile on his face, and his hands are not dirtied at all. Yeah. He's a really good doctor. And remember that scene? He could tell that she was about to give birth just by touching her. Yeah, even the women of Capella can't do that. No, but McCoy can do it. He's that good. He's a doctor, not a diplomat by this point in the show.
I apologize. I seem to have picked up a slight glitch in my vocal processor. I blame the Capella name game. Maybe I can and work it out while Kian and Jeon wrap up the show.
So I don't know what you were expecting from this particular episode of Mission Log, John, but first watching, I wasn't overly into this episode, and yet there's stuff about it that I kind of like. But let's back up a little bit. There are messages, morals, and meanings, or at least we look for messages, morals, and meanings in each episode. Do you think we found any here? Not particularly. I think we did an interesting exploration of, like you said, kind of the when in Rome. How do we approach an alien society? And alien, of course, in Star Trek means aliens, but in real life, we're just talking about dealing with people that we don't necessarily know or understand right off the bat. I think that's all very interesting to look at, but I don't get the feeling like there is a big, heavy-handed moral or meaning or message here. We're watching diplomacy at play. Mm-hmm. And we're also watching the characters at play, like you mentioned, Kirk sort of manipulating his crew with the reverse psychology. We're watching a new side of McCoy, which is cool. I really think that he kind of owns in this episode. But
I don't feel like this is an episode heavy on meaning. How about you?
Well, I mean, I'm sort of happy with the thing that we found about Julie Newmar's character, who I've already started to forget. Eliane.
Eliane. Yeah.
Yes. I'm sort of happy, the whole thing about if you expect more from people, then they'll deliver. It's not always true, certainly. I mean, the Capellans expected the Klingon to be honorable, and the Klingon was not honorable. So that's not always going to work out for you. But I sort of like, I like those kind of messages. I like when you expect, I like when, it's not quite with great power comes great responsibility kind of thing. But basically, if you expect the best from people, there's a chance they're going to show up for it. Because they certainly could have just held Eliane at the end of a pointed stick for the whole episode. And what they would have gotten was, ferocity. And what they would have gotten was, biting and trying to escape. And when she went to Ma'ab, she would not have then said, no, they're dead. Don't worry about them. Let's go and take care of me. And, let society continue as it is. She would have gone back and said, they're up there behind the rocks. So I kind of like the idea and the illustration. Don't treat somebody like they're going to steal your purse. don't treat a kid like he's not going to clean up his room. Don't treat the guy next to you as if he's going to try to get it over on you. Treat him like, like you'd want to be treated. Oh my God, it's the golden rule.
Well, there you go.
Maybe that's it. And so I'm kind of okay seeing that. At the same time, they do point out that it's not always going to work out. Witness what happened with the Klingon.
Yeah, well, and we get these level of surprise at the end with Eliane eventually turning and helping them, and of course Ma'ab's ultimate sacrifice. So yeah, they are surprised by how it turns out. And if we do indeed chalk that up to Kirk and his crew treating them with respect and holding them to the high standard, then great. Maybe that was all the influence that they needed.
So the two messages that we might be able to take from this episode are do unto others and pay it forward.
Oh, yeah, there you go. They kind of work together.
Oh.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, where's my insulin?
Yeah.
But I actually do think that those are two things that you can apply to this episode.
Yeah, yeah.
So what about the production?
And how about learn a little about where you're going?
Oh, well, there is that too.
I like that. Learn the language, at least a few phrases. Maybe
learn a tiny bit more, though. Don't take me to Capella and just, it was like a choose your own adventure. It was like Bones was running his own choose your own adventure. It's like, oh, she's bringing you food. Do you take it or do you not?
Right.
If you take it, turn to this page. If you don't, turn to this page. Oh, don't do the one where you take it.
So the production, you were asking me.
I did ask you about the production, yes.
Yeah, I hate to disappoint. But here's the thing. I feel like the pacing is really weak. We go from these long moments of dull chatter to these sudden moments of fighting. And yeah, it's not like Arena where you've got an 11-minute fight scene. You just have these sort of random fights that break out.
Or the 22-minute bar fight in Trouble with Tribbles.
Yeah, right, yeah. And then you've got, I feel like, character motivations that are all over the map. Now, they do kind of bring it home at the end, but I just feel like it's kind of a mess. I'd be more interested if I felt like the episode were really about the cultural differences and how you navigate that. But ultimately, it seems like this episode is really about Kirk winning and outsmarting the enemy. There's so much emphasis on that, that the other kind of cultural differences is just sort of a little backdrop there to make it alien. So to me, the episode does not really hold up. As a production. I'm glad that we found what we found. I'm glad that we were able to talk about what we were able to talk about. But I just feel like it suffers from being dull and really lacking in focus and direction.
See, I think it depends on what you like. I did not dislike this episode as much as you did. I mean, what I would say is this is probably not going to be on anybody's top 10 list unless they're related to somebody that's in the episode.
Right.
But I didn't think it sucked either. I mean, it really it feels to me like it's fine. This episode is fine. Now, I actually like it a little bit more than some of the episodes that you've liked more, because I'm a weirdo in that this is going to be terrible, and sorry for crossing the streams. I like the first the first 3 episodes of the Star Wars movies, not in general. I think mostly they bite, but I like the political intrigue that goes all the way through them. And so to watch the diplomacy in action here, and even sort of the subtle diplomacy of, well, I'm going to give them my weapons, and that, you know, that's not normally what you would think of as diplomacy, but it is. I kind of enjoyed seeing that. Now, is it as well done as we will see in future, you know, incarnations of Star Trek? Absolutely not.
Right.
But it's sort of like, you know, in any given season in real life on television, there is very little science fiction. And so I'll end up sitting through bad science fiction on TV because it's on TV. And it's neat to see science fiction on TV, even if it sucks. So I think I'm kind of the same way in this episode. This might not be as full a presentation of how we deal with other cultures as you might want. This might not be as full a presentation of, you know, of how diplomacy, how subtle diplomacy can actually work to your benefit.
Right.
But you get so little of that in Star Trek. I mean, the fact that they didn't go down and say, you guys aren't building crap.
Right.
We're going to take over your society. I mean, the fact that there's actually enough there to respect that they figure out how to work in it and with it rather than over it or through it.
Sure.
I really appreciated that part of it. So I personally think it works. There's also something weird about the light in this episode, and I don't know if it's because they were shooting outside or what it was, but there's an older feel to the look of this episode than you get in a number of episodes. It probably has to do with shooting outside.
Well, you jump back and forth a lot between studio and location.
Yeah.
Sometimes within the same scene, and it's very jarring. But then a lot of the location stuff is very blown out.
Yeah.
And it
there's something about honestly, there's something about that that's pretty to me. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's good as far as consistency is concerned, but there's something about that that's pretty to me. Plus, you're at Vasquez Rocks. I personally think this episode, if you're a Star Trek fan, definitely holds up. It is not one to show somebody first.
Yeah, I came across sounding like I really hate this episode. And you're right. I don't hate this as much as other episodes that we have come across that we've really kind of bashed. Things like Alternative Factor or whatever. You know, it is definitely not in that category at all.
What is it with me loving the episodes that you hate?
I don't know.
I'm a fan of Alternative Factor. I don't know why. I mean, maybe it's the subtlety. I don't know. Yeah, good point. That worth considering.
Right. I just consider this one to be, the things that you pointed out, they're good first steps. Like, I like the idea that we will see Kirk trying to be a diplomat, because it was the episode where McCoy calls him out for being a diplomat and a soldier. Maybe you're acting too much like a soldier, you know.
Metamorphosis. Let me stun everybody.
Yeah, good job.
By being able to name an episode for you. Metamorphosis was when he said that.
Good. So there are moments like that I really like about this. I just find that as a production, it's not built in the way that good Star Trek episodes are built. I didn't feel sort of like the anticipation of, what's going to happen by the end here. You know?
All right.
So, so for those reasons, it didn't hold up for me. But I love McCoy in this, I will say that. And I love the first steps we're taking kind of on this path of dealing with other cultures. But overall, I'm saying that it doesn't hold up for me.
Well, okay. I disagree. And it's quite possible that there are people out there. Well, I would say it's a guarantee that there are people out there who either agree or disagree with you as well. So I think what we should invite them to do is get in touch with us, and there are a few ways they can do that. Facebook, Skype, and Twitter. The handle is Mission Log Pod on any one of those things, or they can call us, or you can call us. I mean, I'm going to stop talking to you, John, and start talking to them.
All right.
People, lean in and listen close. If you want to call us, 323-522-5641, 323-522-5641. Is the phone number to do that. You can email us, missionlog@roddenberry.com. That, again, is missionlog@roddenberry.com. We may use your comments on an upcoming episode of Mission Log, and we would also love it if you would check out our home on the web, missionlogpodcast.com.
Next week, getting old is a pain, and the Enterprise crew finds out just how much of a pain in The Deadly Years.
Some of the music for the mission log provided by Warp 11, online at warp11.com, and from the album Messages by Key Theory, free to download at kitheory.com. Parting is such sweet sorrow, but don't shed a tear. We will speak again next week. End transmission.
Now leaving Nerdist.com.